Porn is a performance, whether it's good or bad. The second you know there's a camera on, some part of you starts performing for it. But that's not unique to porn. Actors do it in movies, people do it when they're getting their photo taken. Think about social media. When you see someone posting dozens of selfies and they all have the exact same angle, the same expression, that's not a coincidence. That's a performance. It's about presenting the best version of yourself for the camera. And that's where performance anxiety comes in. It's a real thing. Sometimes you're doing role play, which is obviously a performance, but it can also be super fun. So why do we do it? Usually it's because we want to feel something. Excitement, maybe a little adrenaline, maybe some playfulness or silliness, acting out some fantasies. For some people, the idea of making porn or just knowing someone might be watching can actually be really exciting, and that's valid. So yeah, performance during sex isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's coming from a place of wanting to deepen the experience, to add intensity or intimacy. The trouble is when it starts to feel like something we have to do, like I need to perform this way or I won't be good enough for them. That's when the anxiety sets in. That's when it stops being about connection and starts being about pressure. So, my friend Matthew and I talk about this in this episode, especially our experiences on porn sets, working with other performers. Everyone shows up with their own nerves, their own emotions, their own stuff. And that's okay. It's human. And we all do it in every sexual experience. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. This is Mask Off for Mask, and I'm Vance. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Vance.
This is the first time we've gotten to chat in person.
Holy moly. I know we've, chit-chatted online,
Mm-hmm.
but first time in person. Oh my gosh.
But I think I'm pretty sure I've followed you for a while. So I'll say the way that we kind of know each other, the way that we know of each other is we both worked for Himeros. And so you worked as a sex coach, right? And wrote a few scenes and elaborate if there's more to it that you've done for him.
Yeah, sex and intimacy coach for
Yeah.
Himeros. Gosh, it started off on the other side of the camera, in front of the camera, one-off kind of thing. But
That's how
that,
I with Himeros, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, that's how I did it too.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Yes. How we got in touch. I don't know if I got in touch with you, you got in touch with me
Mm,
at the same time. But
yeah.
yeah, I knew there was something there to explore.
Yeah. Well, I would love to know about so your sex coaching. How did you get into that? What does that look like for you in your practice? Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, my goodness. Yes, sex and intimacy coaching. It began 2021, so pandemic going strong. How I got into this was a whole series of happenstances that started off from my first experience, with Himeros TV in front of the camera. So that took place in 2019, Easton Mountain, upstate New York. You've been there.
That was where, yeah, I did the Himeros retreat
Yeah.
in October this past year.
Yes.
Such
Oh my.
a wonderful place.
Yeah. Was your first time there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's really special.
Wait a minute.
Uh,
So you were shooting when you were a performer at Easton Mountain? That's where they shot your first scene or whatever you did?
yeah. Well, 2019. Well, I was, just living. I was at 29 years old. I was in this kind of superficial relationship. Not superficial. It was still meaningful, but I actually with a Canadian. I
Oh,
lived
yeah.
I lived 7 minutes from the border to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was dating someone, but I felt like there was something more to intimacy. To just, I had been out as a gay man since high school. It's really a series of coming outs, though.
Hmm.
I felt like there was something more and I didn't know what it was. So I just Googled gay tantra online, signed up for the first newsletter I saw from someone named Brad Amberhart.
Hmm.
And the first email I received from him sometime later, at the end of it, there was this call for average guys or normal guys from around North America to participate in this Tantra retreat for gay, bi, queer men. And yeah, it would be all expenses covered. The kicker was that you would be recorded and
Hmm.
work for short films for Himeros. And I
Hmm.
was like, what the hell do I have to lose? I'm at this like juncture in my life trying to find some purpose, deeper meaning. Still am. It's a lifelong thing, but
Hmm.
I filled out like this 4 page like open-ended answer Google form, and I did it at a time where I was feeling kind of low, but it felt like there was like a realness really just pouring out of me, and I had a feeling I'd receive a call back or an email back, and I did. And then I had another conversation with Davey Wavy or David, he goes by
Hmm.
David, and executive producer Himeros, and I was invited to this film shoot, this retreat. I thought about it for a minute, like, what could this do? Could this prevent me from going into some kind of work in the future that's, standard, normal? But deep inside, I knew I couldn't pass up on this. And so
Hmm.
I in that retreat, and it was absolutely amazing, life changing, transformative. I've never felt so empowered and feeling like there was accessible, intentional community, like as a gay man identifying as that. And yeah, I knew I had to do something afterwards with that. I knew of some organizations I could take part in, but shortly thereafter, the pandemic started.
Hmm.
I adapted online, kind of facilitating workshops through Tantra for Gay Men.
Hmm.
You heard of that site? I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so it's so funny when you say that the pandemic happened because my kind of experience was the same. I was in 2019, I started doing burlesque, and that kind of got me into this like, oh, I want to perform, and I've always been obsessed with like erotic art and porn and all this stuff, and so that kind of it was like eventually leading me into that. But I was a yoga teacher at that time too. So I was trying to find a way to mix the two things together. But then, anyways, the pandemic happened, and I found like somatic work, and I was like, oh, this sounds kind of like what yoga is, but also helping with sex and intimacy. So, like, that's how I got into it.
Okay. We're gonna have to have some conversations after this too, because I'm so interested in what you just said.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that you had been into burlesque, or
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I knew the yoga part. I think I may have. I don't know, but burlesque. I love burlesque. Love it
I
to
actually, like, did you do it, or you just love watching it?
I love watching it. It's just so affirming. I feel like it's just so body positive, so person affirming. I've done little bits, like at the Himeros experience, for one.
Hmm.
And I have these ideas for acts. I love it. There's this event that comes to Detroit every year called the Dirty Show. It's a whole erotic art exhibition, but I the main focus is the burlesque performances, and they are
Hmm.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was funny how I got into it because I just like I wasn't this huge burlesque fan or was going to burlesque. I just started doing dance classes, and at the time I wasn't drinking, and my therapist had told me like you got to find something that's like giving you that edge. And I was like, I love dancing. I should actually go take dance classes. So I was just doing like drop in dance classes, and then this workshop had popped up for burlesque, and at the end of the workshop, like the 6 weeks or whatever it was, you get to be in a show. And I was like, oh my god, I've always wanted to dance on stage in a show. So that's the only reason I did it. And it was because burlesque was like, I knew you could kind of do whatever you wanted. Like I knew it wasn't like you have to be doing contemporary dance or it's got to be hip hop, or it could be like it's so freeing and whatever. You just got to take off your clothes. So it's like, great, I'll just do my pop music and put on a little show. But then I learned, like, when I did it, I had a teacher who's this woman who does burlesque, and I remember she said on like the first day of her workshop, she was like, don't do what you think the audience wants to see. Do what you want to do, and the audience will love you loving yourself. And I was like, that is some like profound knowledge that I'm getting from burlesque. And I kind of realized, even because I was a yoga teacher at the time, that I thought, oh, this feels more me because it's pushing people into a vulnerable space with their bodies to be themselves. And then like the whole point of it too is everyone's cheering as you're taking off your clothes. So it's so sex positive, body positive, so creative, freeing, so queer a lot of times. And it's really just about being yourself.
Yes, yeah, we could circle back to that, like expectations versus like embodying authentic self. That, yeah, that comes up
Hmm.
a lot in the work I do, but you can really tell when someone, like as a an audience member, as someone who's watching, you can really tell when someone is either trying to meet expectations of the audience or perform for the audience, or when they are really feeling into themselves. It shows. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
And I think that's also like I think like that's what as a sex coach that's what I see with especially for both of us being experienced like doing porn or like shooting that stuff and being creative with your porn. You see how many so many people, gay men, that because I just work with gay men, but how many gay men try to be something else or they be the thing that they think the person wants to see. And that's like the part of it that like where there's a disconnect of it's like I feel like you're not even connected to me because you're trying so hard to be this version of yourself that you think I want to see, but I want to see you.
Yeah, yeah. We're not exactly taught to, be ourselves and that it's okay. And there's so many expectations that we have of ourselves and like
Hmm.
others. And I like to, when working with performers, since I've mostly worked with adult film performers, and anything's valid. Whether you are getting, straight up into that performer persona, or you are really feeling yourself in front of the camera, embodying your own authentic desires, fantasies, pleasure. It's all valid. Meeting people
Hmm.
at and what is accessible for them is it's important, not expectations to, assume one's full authentic self at one point. Just what is someone comfortable with now? You can sow some seeds. Yeah. I get what you're saying, working with people, with gay men in particular, too. Some of the core experiences I've had working with people who are not just adult film performers was at the Himeros experience. I facilitated that retreat twice, which was, wow.
Hmm.
The first time was incredible. It's actually what helped me. It was one of the turning points at that experience. David was there, Davy Wavy, and I pitched to him, hey, what if I could collaborate in some ways? That experience I had in 2019 was really meaningful. And then during the pandemic, I was facilitating like workshops online, and then I was invited to facilitate in person for the first time at the Himeros experience. And like, I feel like this is really meant to be somehow. So I like pitched it to David. I was nervous, but I could see that he was almost like feeling it with me. He was honoring that, and it was all a thumbs up. Oh, if I do that, are there going to be fireworks?
No, not this time apparently.
Yeah, in the recording studio.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I got the thumbs up. And so that's what led to my first collaboration with Himeros behind the camera. So writing collections of themes, writing essentially film shoots. And I've done 8 of those since then. Has it been 8 or something like that? Maybe 7, and then like a masterclass thing that was recorded. Not thing. A master class that was recorded, like speaking in front of the camera, and then yeah, the Himeros experience. But in addition to writing the themes and the collections of film shoots, and you've had experience with this, participating in a film shoot as a performer. But I was also on set, on scene, and holding workshops for porn stars, essentially, who are also.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that has been incredibly meaningful for me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt too when I did. I mean, the experience of a Himro shoot is so different. Probably. I mean, I never worked on any other studio porn shoot, so I can't say what it's like. But I know that it's different. Where Davey's got a therapist or a coach on set, and it feels very like everyone's checking in with each other, making sure everyone feels good. It feels very safe. Everyone, like the production crew, was like amazing. Like everyone was so kind and like it just created this really safe environment where I felt like sorry, like I said this to David the other day where I was like I said the beginning thing and I don't know if so I worked with Jason when I did the shoot and so I called it group therapy every morning. It's what we would do because it was like how you feeling today, let's check in, and people were really opening up about like other like things that weren't even in the shoot, right? Like things were just going on in life and I was like, oh, I love this. This is like this is my vibe, which is why I think sometimes for me I think with sex is, and I've thought about this a lot of like am I just so different where I need this kind of vulnerability before I can get into sex, or there needs to be some sort of like, oh, I've gotten to the place where I feel safe with you. And it just feels like, oh, I feel relaxed with you and I'm attracted to you and I feel like I can, go further or have sex with you and it feels great. But for me, I'm like the idea of walking into an orgy where I don't know anybody does not seem my vibe. Not because the people wouldn't make me feel safe, but like my body just naturally feels anxious around people that I don't know, right? And I need to take that time to get to that space. But then even when I work with clients, they say that all the time where they're like, I get into my head when I'm having sex and stuff. And I'm like, well, how did this experience go where we have 60 minutes or 90 minutes together? And you have like, we're not just jumping right into it. We might be like talking for 5 minutes. And then 10 minutes, we're just like, maybe we're just hugging. Maybe we're just slowly getting into like soft, slow touch. And it's like, okay, well, you have so much more time to like let your body feel safe with me and get comfortable and we can take our time and go slow. So I'm like, oh, that's what I need too. So I can't be that person just like jump into stuff and be like, okay, cool, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I totally hear that. Honoring your own comfort level and what just feels right. Still maybe, seeking out try new things, new ways, but at the core honoring one's own comfort level. That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Establishing boundaries for oneself. And, one way that we do that is by experimenting. And if we're unsure of the boundaries, our own boundaries even. But yeah, totally hear you. And your approach with clients, I'm going to assume, must feel different from person to person. So there's no like set way on how to connect or to be of service in some way to people. Does that
Yeah, like the whole job, it's so funny because when I first started doing this work, like I'm not a therapist. I'm not like a psychotherapist where like you come in and we're going to talk about your trauma and I'm going to give you all these tips and advice on how to deal with it. It's more so like, "Hey, do you want to come have an experiential experience where you practice intimacy with me?" And I say it to clients like new guys. I'm like, even think about it more like you're coming over to hook up with me or you're coming over for a first date. That is more the mindset of what I want it to feel like. It's a little bit different, but that's what I want it to feel like, right? And so my whole job is, I was gonna say, so when I would started doing this work, it was so easy to like go like put my therapist hat on and be like, and try to like want to fix them. So be like, hey, what's the problem? What is the thing? What's the right thing to say? And then every time I did that, I would not be able to connect because I was in my head too much about what I was supposed to do with this person. So now I do nothing. I just am like, okay, well, I'm going to connect with this person and I'm not going to have any expectations till they show up and we're going to do the thing. And I'm just going to like slowly try to get into things. But, sometimes, especially if it's a first time client, the guy will be, maybe he's in his head the whole time or he can't relax enough. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to be like, let's rev it up and like rev up the intensity of the sex. I'll be like, no, let's just like go slow. This is all we need to do today. So like for me, I'm just going to attune to where you are at in this moment so I don't overwhelm your nervous system. That I just want to let you see how it feels to be with someone who will make you feel safe with wherever you're at. I said that to a client yesterday. I realized that this is a big problem. I don't know if you noticed this, but I said to him, we were talking about bottoming, and I said, he struggled with bottoming, and I said, like a lot of guys that get that request a lot, and I'm like, well, you should be able to walk into a situation, say, well, I want to bottom, but that might change and it might not feel good. And if it doesn't feel good, I'm gonna say, hey, this is just not working today. But a lot of times, guys will just be like, oh, I'll just suffer through because I don't want to wreck the moment, or I don't want to say no to this guy like people pleasing stuff comes in and it's like, well, you'll feel a lot more relaxed if you can trust yourself to say, I'm not gonna, if it's uncomfortable, I'm gonna say no, or I'm gonna say, can we do something else? And so if you go in with that knowing that you will be able to do that, then it will take some of the anxiety off, right?
Yeah, yeah, yep, I hear you on that. Gosh, yeah. And the work I've done, in performing, bottoming is involved. And on a Himeros set, there are 3 scenes that are shot per day. So, we talk about, configuring who might want to do butt stuff, who might want to top, who might want to do neither or all of the above. And, it's really important at the core of of my role as a sex and intimacy coach on set, and with the producer director, with David there too. Sexual agency, just performer comfort level is at the heart of everything that is done there that we do, and honoring that is really important. So if someone is not feeling it on the day of, on the morning of, that's okay. We can still roll with it. We can make that known, so much, so many times. However, on the part of the performer, that expectation can still be there to perform. My gosh, I really wanted to get fucked. Can I cuss? Oops, can I
Yeah.
say? I got a pot anyway, so let it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I really wanted to get fucked. I really wanted to, do anal stuff. And they still, not for everyone, but there's may be this expectation to, oh gosh, I gotta keep douching, or I still want to do it, or I can't do it, and I feel really in my head about it. I've seen that, felt that from the performers quite a few times now. Gosh, there was one experience in a film shoot in Barcelona. One of the performers came in late. We were like up on the mountainside. Oh my gosh. I'm saying "oh my gosh" a lot. I don't usually say that. Anyways,
You know what? Don't worry. You know it's funny since I've done this podcast, because when I go through and edit them and I see like I read the transcript as I'm going through, and I realize how I'm like, oh my god, I say like too much, I say too many uhs, and but I'm like, I'm probably the only one who's noticing it. I'm just overly critical of the way that I speak, because I'm like,
yeah.
oh my god, people are gonna hear this and they're gonna hear how many times I say and like, so like, don't worry about it. No one's paying attention.
ADHD brain here. What? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Got
So you
bigger.
were Yeah, so you were on the mountain, and performer
Yeah,
comes in late.
performers came in late and was actually in one of the first scenes for the next day. We did, as crew, as production, shift the scenes around so this performer could have some extra time to settle in and prepare. But we learned, douching for 3 hours. No one knew that, he was, gosh, putting the stress on himself
Hmm.
because he thought that he needed to assume this role in this position. And when he came out finally, about, oh my gosh, you're like putting yourself through a hell here.
Hmm.
It's okay. However you are in the moment is okay. Just showing up as you are. I like to lead circles on the opening night of our shoot before any of the filming begins. You coming here as you are is more than enough. Like, yeah, you. Everyone coming into the space brings a certain bodily wisdom, certain mental or spiritual wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And there's potential to learn from that, to utilize it, to share it with one another. I love to curate a kind of collaborative space. So when I'm holding workshops for performers and for performers or a combination thereof, it's not my agenda. It's not my program. It's not, oh, I need to tackle this, and we're going to do these exercises. It's, I have these practices in mind. It's really important that I read the room in terms of how I may present them or offer them. Um, ultimately, I feel it's really particularly meaningful to have other people help lead other people in the group and to have them share and chime in. And so it becomes this collaborative effort. I feel like those can be some of the most meaningful learning experiences. And yeah, I've seen that time and time again. I really like that. And I also really love diverging from my own program or my own plan, what I had in mind. Just kind of
Hmm.
subverting it and saying fuck you to what I had, just going with the flow. My brain tends to work well like that too, like on the fly adapting.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I love
Fly
it.
adapting. I like that too. It's funny because I'm kind of that way too, where like I don't wing things, but I kind of try not to prepare too much, because I'm better in the moment of just like feeling things out and like on a whim of when I'm feeling things, instead of trying to force it to be this like perfect way of being. I mean, even with making porn, right? Or even making film, regular film, right? You want a bit of like freedom to be able to have, like, if an emotion comes up, you're not going to say, hey, let that happen, right? You're not going to say, shut that down because it's ruining the scene. It's like, oh, there's some really beautiful, authentic moments that can come out of just letting yourself go outside of that box a little bit or be able to express what you're feeling in the moment or something else come up that wasn't planned, right? Like those are all good moments too with sex and creativity.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me personally, when I'm like leading a workshop or like I feel the need to plan it out or to have things just a little a day agenda of sorts, but just to have
Yeah.
structure there. Otherwise, I'll just kind of freak out. But when it comes time to, and this can be difficult to trust yourself to as you are in the space. Like as a facilitator, it's really important. I want to make sure other people feel comfortable, but I have to feel comfortable too.
Mm-hmm.
That takes some trust, some just a deep exhalation and
Mm-hmm.
presence. Yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
thinking into the present myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I can really trust to diverge and latch onto something or a practice or a conversation that came up spontaneously or unforeseen and can be super meaningful. And those can be some of the coolest experiences too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you, before 2019, before you had done that first shoot or anything, did you have any, like, if you look back at that guy before 2019, before you did that shoot, are you a completely different person, or are you like, oh, I was already starting to learn all this stuff about sex and intimacy or even emotions or mental health or whatever you want to say?
Yes and no. I was into sex and intimacy, but I wasn't into it as a sort of professional role. I had never thought about being in a position doing this kind of work before then. Really hadn't. I had sex. I was
Yeah.
experimental, and it
Can I
was
ask, were you intentional about the sex that you were having?
yes, that was important to me too. Yes, even if there were say hookups or friends with benefits, that was still important to me. But I don't know if I had pinpointed that still. I don't think I really understood it so much. Yeah, I don't think I had so much. It was really 2019, things started to really come together. And I felt like this calling. I knew that there was something more out there. And lo and behold, just seeking something out. And yeah, discovered something super meaningful. And while my background is in Tantra, it's not exclusive to that. And in the work I do with performers on set, it is certainly Tantra like informed. And we could take a step back. What is tantra? What does it mean? Like so many different things for so many different people. But it's really just about presence and observation, awareness, intention in shorthand. But it's really important for me to read the room with other people. So, yeah, before 2019, let me pause because I could probably benefit from some re immersion into Tantra and Tantric practice myself.
Hmm.
I'm feeling a little bit out of it, out of the practice and out of like feeling intentional community compared to pandemic time when everyone was on Zoom. I felt like super a part of community then. And as
Oh,
time went,
yeah.
like, holy shit, like now we're starting to get off Zoom and I don't like what the fuck am I mean, I found my husband through a Tantra website through facilitating these workshops. So that was super meaningful. Um,
Hmm.
now I'm feeling like, well, where's my anchor point? I'm like, where is this intentional community? And I feel like I'm still kind of refinding that or getting back in touch with it myself.
Yeah.
And for one, I think that's okay. And two, how can I, work with myself and honor myself as I am?
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because I've kind of had the pandemic kind of messed up my community because I was teaching yoga before the pandemic, and then I stopped to switch to this work. But even when the pandemic, before I stopped teaching yoga, like I was still teaching online and stuff, but wasn't the same, and I wasn't really enjoying it that much. But that was my community, right? Like a huge part of my community was going to yoga classes, teaching yoga, and seeing these same people every day. And then the pandemic kind of shut down a lot of stuff where, and I know a lot of other people that kind of feel this way, is that like I'm an introverted person and it made me isolate, and it kind of like for 4 years or however long we were kind of in that space, it was like, oh, I don't really know how to go out and find that community anymore. And for a long time I actually used to think like I wanted to go back to that place in 2019 because I was like, oh, I was doing so good and life was so amazing. And then one day I was looking back on my stories on Instagram from 2019, and I was like cringing at myself. Not because I was like, I just was looking back and was like, whoa, you were such a different person. Like there was this newness in exploring sex and being more of an exhibitionist and performing and all this stuff. But like it was so new to you that I can see myself being this like kid in a candy store with what I was posting and being like, oh, that wouldn't be me anymore because I feel a lot more like grounded in this work. You know, like when I started doing burlesque or even when I started doing porn or any of that stuff, it was like so, oh my God, it's so exciting. But everything kind of like, what's the word? If you're feeling the excitement, eventually it's going to like level out. And so now this stuff is so normal to me. Like if when I was even doing the retreat with Himeros or doing a shoot with Himeros, I'd already gone to this place where I'm so used to like people just having sex in front of me and it being this like almost the experience was like, oh, this is normal and this is normalized and we're not like, oh my God, two people having sex there or some guy is hard. It's like, no, this is all like it's normalizing all of that and me feeling a lot more comfortable in that space. So it was like, well, actually, I really like where I am now because I feel so much more confident, I guess, or content with who I am. Whereas at that space, I think I was on this high of like, oh my God, life is just changing so fast and everything is going great. And now it's kind of just, this is my life. And I like that part of my life. And I was seeing, I don't know if I want to go back to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. Both as a sex and intimacy coach and as a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really helpful to me. Now I'm going to be reflecting on that. So, like, where was I in 2019 at the beginning of the pandemic? Because I think of that time, especially like early pandemic time, as really affirming and empowering and like a big relief for me. Like, I'm an introvert by default, but I also really thrive in being in groups or with people in certain contexts. Community is really important, and I get energized from that too. But yeah, so
Do you
I.
get the do you get energized? So like I'm the same way, but it is definitely has to be if I'm in a group of people. So like if I'm in group therapy, I feel more comfortable in that space than I do if I walked into like a house party where everyone was just kind of like making small talk, chatting, doing where it was very superficial. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I almost do I do better in situations where it feels more real. Like I remember listening to think what's her name, Gabby Bernstein. Anyways, this woman who's like a spiritual teacher, or writer, or something. Anyway, she was. I remember her saying first time she went to A, she was like, "Oh my God, this is the first time I've ever heard people be real." And I think that's what I thrive in is when I'm like, oh, everyone is themselves. So like everyone is being authentic and genuine in this moment. And certain spaces allow for that and certain spaces don't. And the spaces that allow for it, I do better in than the space where I kind of feel like, oh, you got to kind of maybe be a bit because if you're at a house party, you're not going to be like, oh, I had the roughest week, I'm having such a hard. You're just like, oh, life is good because it's not the time, right? And so I'm not not as good with being like, okay, I got to kind of change my identity in this space a bit so that I fit in because the real me is too crazy.
Yeah, I totally hear that. Yeah, totally hear that. Yeah, having this kind of like intentional smaller groups too. I think for me, it's all relative. Like I can still feel really excited and be able to connect at house parties, but not all house parties, and not like I'm
Hmm.
going to a lot of house parties now, anyways.
Yeah.
Like in my 20s, I was really into going out. Detroit has a thriving electronic music scene. I love that kind of music. And there was a moment where I was feeling like the life of the party, but I was probably, I was drinking too then. And, I still drink now, but not like that. And
Yeah, I also like I love electronic music too, and going out dancing is fine because you're dancing. You don't have to communicate with other people, right? So I can just go out dancing. And I'm trying to find the summer will be better because I can handle a day party. But staying up till like 11 o'clock to go out dancing to me is like without drinking is really hard to do. And I feel like I'm pushing myself to get to that time. But But I just love dancing. But I get to be in my body and move, and I don't feel like I have to kind of make small talk or do things like that, right?
I hear that. Yeah. This ties it back to like, pardon me, looking back to 2019 time or pre-pandemic or early pandemic. I used to feel so comfortable and excited going out to like music events, and I miss the kind of connections that I had at that time. But yeah, what you reflected seems really helpful. And yeah, it feels really helpful to me because, hey, I can be appreciative of how I've evolved to now. And what have I now? What do I have, or how have I evolved to who I am, how I am now, that I can give some damn credit to that may have not been fully fleshed out back then. So, yeah, that helps balance out this kind of wistful kind of longing for what was. And sense of time during the pandemic is like totally fucked up, like out the window for me. I feel like I'm starting to like end that chapter or tome, whatever,
Yeah.
creates some newness. But hey, we can give ourselves some credit for who we are, how we are now. I mean, we've all survived a freaking pandemic, for one. And yeah, how can we give ourselves credit? So I'm going to reflect on that off the camera too, because that sounds really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try to even like I just try to look at the world, and I like even when I follow you on Instagram, I see that you talk a lot about like political issues and social issues and stuff, and so I try to, and I'm always fascinated by that stuff too, and so I try to look at the world as like the pandemic. I see the effects of what's happening politically because of the pandemic, not because of the way it was handled or something, but this world event and how like I think there's big issues with us not being self-aware and not being able to have resilience to hard times and difficult times, and all that stuff is coming into it. And so I try to kind of just like take a step back and think like, okay, life is not supposed to be easy. It's, life is what it is, and I'm seeing how can I show up in the way that I am now or with the knowledge that I have now, and also recognizing that this is kind of the last few years have kind of been fucked up. Like how old are you?
Let's think for a second. 34, almost 35.
Okay, I'm 35 too. I was gonna say, oh, millennials. I feel like we kind of our generation kind of got fucked over, not by anyone's fault, but it's just the time that we live in right now, where like right uh, like politics is so fucked up. There's a lot of issues that are going on in the world that are very hard to handle on a daily basis, and also with social media and stuff, right? Like we're seeing all of this stuff where 30 years ago you wouldn't be like watching the news 24/7 and being aware of what's going on 24/7. So I just have to be like, I exist in this space now, and try not to be like angry about it, or I wish it was 2019, or I wish it was this other time, and try to be like, okay, this is what it is, accept it, and who am I going to be in as a person in this time, in this space, and what am I going to do with my life to feel like it's more meaningful and purposeful, and right? I Does that make sense?
It does. And sometimes I feel curmudgeonly thinking to myself, I miss the time back in the like early 2000s or the 90s when we were, the internet was just starting up and we could go on AIM or MSN Messenger and have our away messages, and we could intentionally be online or away or offline. Now we have like whole entertainment centers at our fingertips, and we're like almost expected to be online 24 throughout the waking days and hours. And that just feels like a disconnect to me. And I feel like through the pandemic, well, before the pandemic, we were already living, and this is a total generalization, but in like Western societies, like kind of isolated lives. I feel like we've become kind of isolated, shut ourselves out from our neighbors, from community, just in the ways that we've been living our lives as nations, as people. And the pandemic did no service to that. I think it's really shown itself in our politics, in our current landscape. We're all subject to, well, not all, but some of us are, perhaps more than others, subject to these like our information vacuums, what we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis, who we come into contact with on a regular basis, who we don't. And yeah, that's something I'm reckoning with, just thinking of myself as a human in the world and how I want to live my life, like in community and just connecting to people and to the land. And it's important honoring that coming into a space when I'm working with people, understanding, hey, people might be coming from different backgrounds, different comfort levels. And yeah, who knows? Shit's stirring for people.
Hmm.
And holy crap. That brings to mind this moment I had in the last film shoot, which took place in January this year, so just over a month ago, where I decided to kind of go a little renegade with a practice I was offering on the first day, first workshop, just before the first scene on the shoot. I was feeling a little out of it, a little fucked up myself. This was in France, so there was no time difference, and some other performers, also coming from overseas, bodies adjusting to the time difference, bodies adjusting, internally, maybe digestion, who knows what's going on. But it's really important for me, like, you know, to be myself. I'm aware I might come off as a little quirky, a little eccentric, a little different. And I've learned that if I can lean into that, and this took some learning and still does, how might that help others feel more authentic, feel more comfortable being authentic in themselves? And
Hmm.
yeah, that I feel like that's so meaningful, so powerful, it has potential to be that way. But I was doing this exercise, like getting people to partner up with their scene partners for the first day, not to blabber on. But this theme was video games for this entire shoot, the quest for intimacy. The alternative title was Game Over. I didn't like that so much myself. I felt it was kind of Debbie Downerish.
Yeah, when it was game over.
It hurt a little bit. So quest the subtitle, it was all good. For these shoots, also, I do like academic research for them, which is pretty.
Yeah.
One of the film shoots, I consulted over Zoom a leading world researcher on fairy tales because it was a fairy tale theme shoot.
Yeah.
Fascinating. She teaches like 5 minutes from me. She knew exactly what I was consulting her for. She was totally supportive of it. Oh
Uh,
my, so cool. But when I come on scene, reading the room. So I'm not like having these academic conversations. If someone wants to have them, hey, let's go. But it's more experiential, more kind of, partnering up, exploring different elements of touch, of communication, of like embodying consent without necessarily like talking about consent and what it means, but
hmm.
exploring different elements of connection and communication so people can feel it out themselves. But I had this moment, finally getting to it, where like people were pairing up with their partners for their scenes in the first day. I don't know what we were doing before that, but I had mentioned maybe mentioning eye gazing, which is like a big practice, an element of Tantra. And it's a really vulnerable practice.
Hmm.
Look into another's eyes, look into your partner's eyes, and to just gaze. It requires an unsheathing of the guards that we create for ourselves. And, I've been in retreats, I've participated in eye gazing practices, and it doesn't always feel the most comfortable for me in the moment.
Hmm.
It's all relative. So I was like, I don't know, I mentioned it as like, okay, I have a tantra, come from a background of tantra, and eye gazing is a practice it's usually offered, but you know, what the fuck? It doesn't. There is no set way to connect with someone, to sink into the present a little deeper, to embody your own pleasure and intimacy, as long as one respects, communication, consent, and sexual agency. But meeting yourself where you're at too. There are different ways to connect. We have different brains. So if it's more comfortable, more accessible to you, if it feels better to close your eyes or to rest your gaze somewhere, maybe lean into touch with your partner instead of gazing into your eyes, then hey, why not do that? And one person that really resonated. I thought to myself, what the fuck am I saying right now? Like an anti eye gazing exercise. It really deeply resonated for him. His partner, really embodied person, was really into eye gazing, but this person it was a little much. Right now, it was a little confrontational, and he really loved the option to still connect with the other person and to still feel into himself, but not have to do this eye gazing or feel an expectation to be an authentic person and not have to be performed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He took this. He and his partner. We went directly after that workshop to the first scene on the first day, and that's always a thing. As a crew, as part of crew, we always, and I mean this in the kindest way, drop expectations because we're all figuring out, ironing out the kinks, maybe literally. um, yeah, figuring things out. So, let's all just go with the flow. But I went directly into a mini workshop with these performers because you have mini workshops for the scenes. And this performer who was really really moved by this, he wanted to have this like 15 minutes. Our whole workshop was 15 minutes or 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we had a 30-minute conversation about, oh my God, like there's not an expectation here to perform in a certain way, to have to gaze into one another's eyes. In Tantra, breath, sound, movement, and intention are really important elements. But for instance, not all of us feel comfortable making a lot of sound. That might vary based on certain how we're feeling, our bodies are feeling, where we're at in life on a particular day. So, that can look different, sound different, depending on the person, on comfort level, and
Mm-hmm.
having this whole conversation for 30 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck? Oh my God, like this is really heady. I love it. I think I articulated this too. But I'm concerned that this might take you as performers like out of like your bodies. And like, oh my God, I have no idea what's about to happen. And the conversation was incredible. And they wanted me to be a part of it too. Usually I
Hmm.
like to step back and give them some space to like connect and talk about yes and no's and feel into themselves and each other and just kind of go on from what was offered earlier in the day. So they create their own destiny. But there was this conversation. I'm like, oh my God, this is wild. And then immediately after it ended, the scene started, and I was so freaking floored at how embodied they both were. I felt like really I was crying during their scene. It doesn't usually happen. I like to think of myself as a little hard to cry, but it felt good. It was one of the most beautiful expressions of like male male intimacy I have ever witnessed. I was just really couldn't believe it. The partner of the performer who was, I mean, really articulating what had come up for him had listened to what the performer was saying, and at one point he blindfolded him or took the blindfold off of himself and blindfolded him, and it was like this beautiful like power dynamic shift and kind of like flow of just feeling into the moment. Yeah, I actually have David sent me a still. I haven't seen the scene, but it's a still from the from the scene as
Oh
a
yeah, it's
memory of just the kind of work. And yeah,
wow.
can be a part of it.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, and I think it's all that you said. Like even when I work with clients, it's not throwing stuff at them, but like exploring different things that I don't think a lot of people know that they can try and explore. Like if you give people that option to do eye gazing or something like that, right? Most like even when I asked you about being intentional about the sex that you're having, I think a lot of times people are like they just kind of go through the motions of it, or they hook up and they do kind of the same thing over and over again because it is a bit vulnerable to try something that you never tried again. Like even when I did or tried before, like even when I did my shoot with Davey, the first day we had to pretend to be monkeys, and I said that like that was actually more scary, not scary, but that was harder to do than to have the sex because I was like, I feel so stupid. Like this, this is so stupid to act like a monkey. But even though it was nothing sexual, it got me out of my head to be like, okay, if you can act that stupid, then like the sex is the easy part, right? Because this feels more like it feels more embarrassing or something like that, right? And so it's like, oh, because I did that really hard, vulnerable thing, it made the sex part feel like, okay, I can like ease into this because I just did that, right? And so what I always try to do with guys is like, let's try something different. Let's try to find that edge or something that feels a bit scary or just like cuz or uncomfortable. And if you do that and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm going to try to do this thing, feels uncomfortable. I might like trip my way over it while I'm going through it, but like just do it. You're not, this isn't an audition. Just do the thing and just see how it feels. And if it feels uncomfortable, and then you start to feel safe because you're like, oh, I did something that was really new and scary and uncomfortable, but Vance was like so supportive and made me feel safe or something, or, and so it was like, oh, it gave us that, it broke the wall of being like, yeah, you can be yourself because I just got you to do something that made you uncomfortable. Like, does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
like we need to explore vulnerability a little bit more in whatever way it is. That's one thing I love about role play is that it's like if you don't feel comfortable in your own body, then be someone else. Like let's do role play so that you can just pretend to be this other person and get into that headspace and see if that's like, oh wow, I felt so great to be someone else. And it's like that's the great thing about sex is it's like you can play and do all these different things and be all these different things that you are in whatever feels good for you. But like, yeah, you gotta kind of push some edges and do stuff that's a little bit scary.
For real. Yeah. And
Mm.
sometimes it's really about the invitation to get into that time and space.
Hmm.
Leading someone, inviting someone to role play or to kind of start to dissolve some of that vulnerability in ways that feel good still. But how does that happen? And that can take an invitation, however that may look, and that
Hmm.
takes kind of confidence, embodying thyself. But
Hmm.
I had this sense that I had a feeling that was at the core of what you do or how you do what you do, which is one reason I was really excited to talk to you and to meet you face to virtual face.
Hmm.
Yeah, the first time because I felt that, I can maybe this is coming from a position of like being sex and intimacy coach, but I'm also a human being who has senses and such. Uh,
Yeah.
Kind of, I emit that,
Hmm.
just this kind of awareness. Yeah, there's a certain allowing other person to be comfortable in that, and yeah, role play. There's an exercise I usually offer. I had one version of it, and then I workshop these exercises over different shoots, and then someone gave me an idea at an Himeros experience actually to modify it in a certain way where I have performers, maybe a couple in front of the camera, but then the other performers who are not the core part of the scene are pretend crew, pretend directors, pretend sound person who lead the other people and to create a scene. So there's this role play, pornography role play, and creating a scene. And it takes some confidence to lead that. It also takes silliness and willingness to be silly and to encourage others to feel comfortable being silly.
Hmm.
And I've seen that evolve over time. All it takes is one person, one participant to feel it and lean into it, and it starts a boom, 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 domino effect. And it's really funny to see how that can help people feel more embodied, more comfortable just being present.
Hmm.
So I hear you.
There's so many skills that I tell guys that with sex there's so many skills that you don't need to like practice in sex, like yoga and meditation. I tell every guy to do that. Just yoga and meditation teach you to be authentic. So yoga, it's all about like being yourself on the mat, right? So if you're feeling like, hey, this doesn't work for me, this doesn't feel good, I'm going to modify. That's what you would do in sex, being connected to your breath, being connected to your body. And so it's like this practice of, oh, I'm in my head, how do I come back into my body? But I do that in yoga all the time, so I can do that in sex as well.
Yeah, yoga. I'm starting to get back into my yoga practice now, a little more consistently, and yeah, I feel that in terms of just feeling into the body and attuning to oneself. I have some background in breath work too. It's super easy to fall out of that practice. I forget the statistic, but most of us in the world are not breathing right or in the ways that were intended to nourish our bodies, which is
Hmm.
freaking wild to me. But yeah, there's a realness there, and meditation. There's more than just one way to meditate. There are active meditations where you're actually moving around, where you're not having that kind of silent, quiet meditation. You could be doing whatever, and it can still be a meditative experience.
You
There's really
just
this invitation, this willingness to allow yourself to go there.
Yeah. And I always tell people too, it's like if you want to explore yoga and meditation, every time you remember it during the day, just take like 2 deep breaths and try to like be aware of what you're feeling. And you do that anywhere. So you could be on the subway and then think, all right, I'm gonna take a deep breath. What am I feeling? Feeling a bit anxious. It's probably because I have to go do that thing later. It's okay. Everything's all right now. Just breathe. Notice the tension in your chest. Like, just do that and take, like, in that time, I just did yoga, right? And that's all you need to do. People, I think, get their head into like, or they get into their head about like, oh, I'm not flexible enough. I don't know how to meditate. I don't do it right. It's like there's no right or wrong. The practice of it is being self-aware of your feelings and breathing and calming your nervous system. So you don't have to even be on a mat. You can just like you said, close your eyes, just go inward for one moment and just check in. And there, you just did yoga. You just meditated, right? You just became self-aware of what's happening in the present moment.
Yeah, there are these neatly packaged breathing exercises for different ways, different strategies. For example, like a three-part breath, you could do, and yeah, a couple of
Yeah.
little like that. Oh my gosh, I used to do like PC muscle exercises, kind of like the muscle that you clench and unclench when you pee.
Mm-hmm.
It's also what you can use to have multiple orgasms. That's for another podcast. Yeah, just kind of you clenching as you with your breath, using that muscle and almost envisioning like the energy going up and down. That starts to get a little woo woo for some. I totally recognize that, but it can make a difference for you if it works. Then shoot,
Yeah, and it
why?
also like when I do like I call it erotic breath work where you're like doing Kegels basically while you're breathing. And so when I'm especially if I'm on my yoga mat or something and I'm sitting on a block and I'm doing those Kegel exercises and breathing, it feels pretty pleasurable and you can start to get aroused just by feeling cuz your perineum, your taint is pressed against like you're sitting on a block, right? So you can feel it. That feels good if you just touch it. So like I just even say it brings awareness down to your cock and to the muscles in your ass and all that stuff, but it just kind of feels good too. And you might as well do it while you're meditating and practice using that muscle and being aware of it. And that's all you got to do. So that's why I do it. It's just because, and I know it strengthens the muscles down there so you can last longer and all that stuff, but it just kind of feels good to do too.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to feel FOMO now. Gosh, I'm gonna have to try that out now next yoga practice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, Once again, feel.
Um, yeah. Oh my God, I love talking to you, but we got to slowly wrap this up. So I have one more question for you. What are you most excited for in your life right now?
Oh my gosh, what am I most excited for in my life? Well, there are lots of unknowns in terms of what's coming next. I feel like, in some respects, I have this background now. There have been enough experiences that I've had in coaching, especially groups, where I can give myself some credit and say, okay, thank you to those imposter feelings, that inner critic. I recognize how you're trying to help me in some way, but yeah, you can hit the door now.
Mhm.
I'm really grateful for that, but I'm also still finding my footing, or maybe not finding footing, but figuring out what's next and how to expand what I do or to adapt it in different ways, how to let it evolve. What am I most excited for? Wow, I think I can be excited for some of the unknowns. I'm feeling this out as I'm articulating this in real time, but they can freak me out in some ways. I could be fearful of them, and in some respects, I am. But I can also be really excited for the unknowns as long as I can trust myself and trust my body and trust, yeah, head, shoulders, knees and toes, whatever the, yeah, song. Just trusting myself and knowing that I've got what it takes and just knowing, just connected to this purpose of being of service to others. And doing the work that I do, that's the most important thing. If I can be of service to others in some way, that feels so damn good for me. So looking forward to finding new ways, different ways to be of service to others, and also to just feel empowered in my own body. Yeah, honor all of that.
Hmm. That's really nice. Well, and I think I can see that in. So when I look at you, it's so funny when you were posting all your Advent calendar, Christmas things, or whatever they are, the Instagram posts. I was watching. The reason I admire you so much is because you know how you just said like you're really quirky or whatever, and it's taking time. I can see how you feel. You're so you. Like you come off as very genuine, very authentic. And I admire and somewhat a little bit jealous of people like that I feel like, because I'm still learning to just be myself and feel like I can be that way around other people and feel relaxed. And I'm getting there too. And it's, but yeah, it's a process. And I admire how much you are you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah.
have if I may reflect for a moment, admire how you can do what you do and how you're expanding what you do. At least I get that sense seeing how you've evolved, like your practice and how I've been aware of you so far on social media. And seeing that is really cool and inspiring to me. Because sometimes I get in my own head about that, especially when I'm like isolated in my own space and away from community. Things start to feel far away from me. But also I feel just immediately totally at ease and comfortable in your presence. And that is that you bring in just being you. And I can't say the same about everyone. I don't need to get sassy here, but uh, yeah, that's really, I respect and admire and really value that. And yeah, you bring that in just being you, and it's a relief and it feels damn good.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I find it. I used to, even when I was just a yoga teacher, I would say this, where I'm like, I love if you're a yoga teacher, I'll probably like you because as long as like it probably tells me that you're into yoga enough, so like you're into compassion and kindness and all that stuff. So when I meet other people that are like sex coaches or tantra coaches, I'm like, oh, you're probably my people. Actually, when I did the first Himeros shoot, that's how I felt. I was like, these are my people. I feel like these guys, these men, is the first time I felt like, oh wow, I'm in a group where I feel like we're all very like-minded and the same, and I feel very safe around these people. And yeah, so I love all you guys that do this work, and that's how I feel like that's my community that I want to be around more. That's my intention in life right now is I want to be more around other guys that are doing this work, feel the same way I do about this stuff.
I would love that too. And yeah, I feel like in some respects that's felt so kind of far away from how it was that it didn't even come up for me immediately.
Mm.
Yeah, it is. That would be wonderful.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've almost taken this time to, like in recent times, not post pandemic because it's still going on and I don't know, but just to kind of be with myself and be with my partner. But yeah, that intentional community with other gay, bi, queer men really has been really meaningful for me. And getting back in touch with, and there's no certain timeline for it. In some ways, just experimenting and exploring, however it
Hmm.
feels and is fitting. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
that's what.
All right. Well, that's a good place to end it off. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Vance.
Yeah, that was such a great conversation.
Yes, yeah, uh huh. To be continued for
Yeah,
one.
well, yeah, I'll just do another one. Okay.
Yeah.